All right. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Coffee Q&A, our daily live stream about coffee, answering questions and talking about who knows what. Anyway, it's December 1st, and it is our final live stream of 2023 as we get ready to make our big move to a new location. So if you're just joining us for the first time or just new to the podcast or the live stream, this has been our space for the last 7 years, and we're finally moving out and have to tear everything down. So we have to be out by the end of the year. So that means that we kind of have to put the live stream on hiatus. Gosh, I'm having a hard time with English today. Put the live stream on hiatus so we can tear it all out, find a new place, build it all up, and then restart again in early 2024. So how y'all doing? Good to see you. Bald Head is with us. Good to see you there. Wilson, always good to see you as well. So today we have a special coffee. Let me turn my. One day I'm going to remember to keep the camera running. So when I went to Asia back in May and June, I spent a month in Asia, in Southeast Asia mainly. Went to Malaysia, Bangkok. Then I went over. I was supposed to go to Vietnam, but I totally mucked that up. So I ended up staying an extra day in Bangkok and flying to Manila early. Went to Manila, toured around the Philippines. Went to Manila. Then I went down to Negros to visit Dumaguete and Bacolod, and then over to Cebu, and then back to Manila, and then ended up in Tokyo for a week before flying back. So I was there for a good month, really nice time. But during that trip, I ended up going to the Philippine Coffee Expo, and they were just concluding the Best of the Philippines Coffee Competition and giving awards. And I ended up being a moderator for a panel of producers, having a big discussion about producing coffee and roasting coffee and how the green buyer producer relationship, that kind of dynamic, because there's a lot of green buyers want to buy the best possible coffee for the lowest possible price, and of course the growers are trying to grow coffee and they want to sell it for the highest possible price to get their return. And it's an interesting back and forth, and it's not just endemic to the Philippines and their coffee scene. It's actually a struggle that happens worldwide, and it's some things that I've seen it personally myself in many parts of the world, and I think it's an interesting discussion. And I think that the more that people can talk and be open about their concerns, the better it is. Because for the longest time, especially prior to the specialty coffee emergence of the third wave, I believe it really was more about coffee buyers from large corporations dictating terms to the producers. We see that with the C market, right? The C market dictates a price, and then everyone must follow along. It doesn't have any regard for input or the realities of production. Like I remember in 2008, we went to Minneapolis for the trade show, and I was actually shooting a video for it that was going to be part of this video series that just never really got off the ground. But we went to visit this dairy farmer in Wisconsin, across the border. Nice guy, young guy, family, wife, 2 kids, dairy farm. And at one point, he's talking about the economics of it, right? So basically, he's selling all this milk that he's, producing from these cows, selling them to whoever's buying them. I guess there's some kind of co-op or not co-op, but like whatever creamery he's selling it to, and he's selling it at a loss. Like he said, it was very black and white in the video. He's like, if it cost me, let's say per gallon, it costs him 80 cents to produce the gallon. They're paying him 60 cents a gallon, and it's like, how do you make up the loss? And he's like, well, the wife works in town. And I was like, that's really kind of when it really started to click for me when I talked to this guy, that there can be a gap between the producer and the grower. And I think that's an important thing for us to address in specialty coffee, because we are trying to buy coffee at a lower price. I mean, there's no everyone wants to maximize their profit, right? And on the other side of it, well, let's see here. Oh, Eric's here. What's going on? Buenos dias, here from Estados Unidos. And what percentage of beans are sold at commodity prices? Hopefully, well, commodity prices, most specialty coffee is not Well, I can't say that. I don't know. I mean, I don't really work in that realm. I'll have to ask some friends that probably would know more about that than I do. Because really, I'm really have been in this really tiny like slice of the industry. Like I've said in other of our videos, when I go to places like Uganda and work with the Uganda Coffee Development Authority, and I go to their quality control labs, I'll ask the guys, hey, can you give me some samples of these commercial grade coffees? Because I'm so fascinated by it, because all of the stuff that they experience on a daily basis is something that I really don't ever see in my segment. But I'm working a really tiny slice of the industry. So um, I would say that I mean, of course, I think still around the world, the majority of coffees that are sold in the world are sold at commodity prices, at sea market prices or below, right? And so one of the videos, I think we talked about sea market coffees or commercial coffees and how they're graded upon acceptable number of defects. Whereas specialty coffee, we're looking and grading the coffees for attributes. But we're looking for what are the quality aspects of the coffee for specialty coffees, where in the contracts for commercial, they're about how many acceptable defects will we allow and at a price. And usually the more defects, the more price differential there is to the negative in cents from the sea market price. So let's say the sea market price is a dollar, or let's say it's 2.25. And I don't really know what the specifics would be because I'm not in that work realm, but let's say you say that, okay, you can have this, and this defect, and this many per sample. So a 350 gram sample. So let's say you can have X amount of acceptable defects. And with that, we'll buy it at -25 to the C. So whatever the C market price, so let's say it's 2.25. If it's -25 cents, then they'll pay $2 for that pound rather than 2.25 that the C market is dictating. And theoretically, the specialty coffee market works on a plus C market rate, but really that's not necessarily the practice. I think a lot of it's more about negotiating and working with farmers to find out the right price. And like how I've worked with our farmers is, in some cases, it's been like, well, how much is the coffee? And, if it's within a acceptable range, we're happy to pay it. Actually, we don't really, I mean, we work with them to find the right price. That's an important aspect of how I think we should approach the business. But I do think that, I mean, especially really just means that it's of a certain grade, right? So we're talking about when you're grading coffees, we're talking about 80 points and above for specialty. And I'm sure there's plenty of coffee in the 80 to 85 category that are sold as commercial grade coffees. Also, the reality is that, you may have a producer that's producing this coffee and maybe it's an 87, right? But it's maybe a portion of that is like an 87. But, he's just producing and he's just trying to sell it because he needs to make money, right? Like I remember when we were in Guerrero one year, we're trying to find a group of us coffee buyers. We're trying to find a deal with this group of disparate coffee producers from this one mountain community. And I say disparate because they're of different levels of means, right? Some were pretty well capitalized and had, good means. They had their own mills. Others had pretty much nothing. And if you're one of some of the buyers and you're like, hey, we'd like to buy your coffee because we want to build that relationship. We want to build that story for our clients, for our customers. And they're saying we'd like you to buy our coffee for $2.75, or they say $2.50. And let's say at the time the C market's probably around $2. So there is a premium on that. And okay, so the response has been we're willing to consider paying $2.50, but we need the coffee to be 85 points and above or above. And to get coffee that way, or to get coffee of that quality, probably you'll have to spend another 2-3 months working on that, processing of the coffee, drying the coffee, putting it in what we call reposado to age it out, to soften it. And that takes time and money. And so these guys, some of them that aren't of much means, they need to feed their family now. So they typically have been selling their coffee and cherries to coyotes who come there, buy the cherry. They come up to the mountain, come up to the farms. They're like, what do you have, right? And buy the cherries, truck them down. And so there's a potential to be beautiful coffees that are being sold at sea market prices because, they've found their way into that track for a variety of reasons, not just that way. But so, yeah, it's one of those things where you kind of have to seek it out. And even those producers that are producing nice quality specialty, typically there's a portion of their production that does go to commercial. Or let's say they're a specialty coffee producer, and let's say a specialty coffee producer can produce, I don't know, four containers a year. So that would be 160,000 pounds of coffee. Maybe that person only sells to specialty coffee buyers. They only can sell 3 containers. Right, so that last container, what are they going to do with it? They sell that on the open market. So maybe that's like 82, 83, 84 coffees, but that gets sold as sea market because nobody's buying it. So those are different ways that can happen. And Michael says that sounds similar to the chocolate industry. Everybody can get a win out of it, right? I mean, yeah, I guess so. I don't know the chocolate industry. I have very little understanding of chocolate and how it's traded, but I imagine it's traded in very similar ways to coffee. But yeah, there's always that history of conglomerates and larger European and American corporations or barons that are taking advantage of native peoples and their crops. And even here in America, where it's, we've got major corporations taking advantage of regular farmers in America. Exploitation is really a lot about what capitalism is about. I don't mean to get all political on you, but I mean, this is kind of the reality. Like that guy in Wisconsin, he needs to make, he's producing it at 80 cents. They're buying it at 60 cents or whatever that differential is. So, right away, no matter what he does, he can never win. He can never get out of that. His wife has to work in town to make enough money just so they make ends meet. There's something criminal about that, I think. And so with us, like with Spro, we're very tiny, right? We're very tiny. Our output is so tiny, like it's nothing compared to a lot of the other companies, right? But those people that we do work with, we want to bring better approaches to it. Like one of the if we're with a group, we were working with my friend Z and the Talandig tribe down in Bukidnon one year. We've done that for many years. And so there was this idea that we had called the river washed. We call it the river washed, what we call the hinunawan in Tagalog. What that is basically is we were just sitting around one day talking when I was in Manila. She was like, oh, yeah. I said, what do they do with the excess coffee? And she's like, oh, they put them in a basket, float it in the river, wash it that way, and then they'll drink it at some point. And I was like, wait, they what? They put the coffee in a basket and they run it in the river? Like a river runs through it? She's like, yeah. And I was like, okay, let's try that next year. And I was like, oh, it's so totally fascinating. I was like, let's try that next year. And she was like, really? And I was like, yeah, let's do that. That just sounds so cool. But of course, now I'm asking them to make something. A lot of times people will ask producers, hey, can you make this? The producer then takes all the risk, which I guess is fine. But at the end of that transaction, let's say the results aren't very good. Now the buyer doesn't want to pay to cover the cost of that coffee to produce. Now, let's say that coffee tanked. Do you want to pay the price that they're asking? Probably not. But that's where your approach matters, I think. And so with that, I told her, hey, let's try this. I know it's a risky thing. I'll pay you guys upfront. I'll cover you the upfront cost of how to do it. And I think that the total cost for us was like $7 $7.60 a pound green. So we paid that up front because I knew that that's taking a risk. And so let's say it turned out to be 90 plus. Awesome. We got 90 plus coffee for $7, right? But the other side of it is, let's say it tanked. Let's say it was terrible, like the worst coffee ever. Like, let's say it's like 72 level coffee. We still paid the same price, right? So you have to, I think in some ways you have to, if you're going to ask someone to like do something for you, you have to take on some of that risk, right? I'm babbling too much already, babbling too much. Good morning, Mom. How are you? Good to see you. Good to see you. And the bulletin says, all the coffee that is sorted out to make specialty coffee to be sold somewhere. Am I reading that correctly? Yeah, okay, good. Yeah. So everything, and years ago, it was 2007, my very first time to the IAFCA conference, which is at the time it was called IAFCA, the East African Fine Coffee Conference. East African Fine Coffee Association Conference was being held in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. 2007, I'm only like maybe 5 years into it. And, like I said before, when you're like 5 years, you've got that swagger. You've learned enough that you're like, you can pontificate to the world and be like, yeah, this is how it should be. And y'all are wrong. So I'm sitting there having a cigar one night. We're at the Sheraton in Addis, where the conference was held. I'm sitting outside of this gazebo area, having a cigar. This gentleman, this Dutch guy, he was a coffee trader. I'm sure he's a big coffee trader. We're smoking cigars, talking, and like a brash young Turk, I'm just like, all coffee, something about like all coffee should be sold, only specialty coffee should be sold, nothing else. And then he was very patient. Like, this guy was awesome. I wish I knew what his name was. I wish I knew him still today. But he was a really amazing guy because he was so patient. He was so kind and patient. And, it's so easy to dismiss someone that just comes off and pontificates about something, right? Then you're just like, oh, what a bonehead idiot this guy is. And I was the bonehead idiot, right? So, but he's like, well, you know what? Actually, all coffee has a place. Every coffee needs to be sold to certain. And he broke it down. He's like, some coffees are sold to people like you and your friends, and then other coffees sold to these kind of places and these companies and this institution. Some are sold to government for military use. Some are sold for prison use. And he just kind of broke it down in a really like patient and kind way. And it's really, I mean, we're talking now 2007. It's like, 15 years later or so, it's still on my mind. His words still resonate. So that was really, really good of him. And then Eric says, I love learning this. I would think that my eyes are getting bad. I would think it's the producers screwing the farmers, not the buyers. Well, I mean, producers screwing the farmers, not the buyers. I mean, when you say producers screwing the farmers, I mean, a lot of times the producers are the farmers. Now, one of the things that I think is important as a green buyer, and for us, it's for Spro, it's always very expensive compared for like for like cost and return, right? Like, how much money will I spend to go to the farms, and how much coffee are we buying relative to that expense? It's not really a smart way to spend your money. Honestly, it's not. It's much more cost effective to sit at home and order from different importers. But part of the process for me is that I want to see the farms. I want to see the conditions that the coffee is being produced in. And let's say I'm thinking about this one place I work with in Nicaragua. My friends own it, and it's a place called Finca La Aurora in Matagalpa. And it's a 400-hectare farm, big operation, right? They've got all kinds of stuff going on, and they have during the harvest season they have a lot of seasonal workers, and they house them, they feed them, they educate their kids. They have these big dormitories, and so we toured them, right? And we would hang out at the farm, and you see the people, and the people don't seem to be unhappy. Like, they're being paid a premium compared to other places in the region, right? So I think on average they were paid per Cordoba, which is about 25 pounds. They're being paid a premium of 25 cents per Cordoba more, 25 US cents per Cordoba more. So they seem pretty happy about it. And I mean, they're not making like US wages, right? But they're making, I guess, decent money for their country. And it's also enough that they're not trying to migrate to the United States. And I think that's a big factor. You know, we want, as America, you know, we talk about immigration, right? Basically, these Republicans are complaining about all these brown people flooding into America, right? Of course, who's going to pick the crops? Not them. But why do they come here? Because their conditions are difficult, right? If we can improve it, so if we're really concerned about stopping immigration, and if we can find a way to reverse what our nation has done in many of these other nations over the years, and create better conditions so they have better economies and better pay scale, why would they come? Nobody really wants to leave their families behind just to go work in a country where they have to hide and like cower and in fear. Nobody wants that. So if we can do something, so as we see things like that, it really helps. And where I really saw that very strongly was in Esteli, Nicaragua, in the cigar industry, right? So we were visiting Drew Estate one year, 2014, and they were telling me, you know, when they first started the factory back in the 90s, people walked to work. As the factory did well and they made more money and they started paying more, they could pay people more, they started getting riding to work in bicycles. Then they started getting like little motorcycles. So you could see the progression and the migration out of Esteli is much smaller than the rest of Nicaragua because there's a very strong industry. So that's why I do believe that if we can find ways to build better industry and economies in their home nations, you know, no one really wants to leave. Like, why do people leave? Because they have to. Economics or war. You know, it's only Americans that like, or the Westerners that like, I'm going to go here because I think it's cool and interesting, right? Mom, good morning. How are you? Oh, did I say that already? Well, anyway, good morning again. And then Paul had said there is also history. Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, there's no way around that. And hopefully I don't know much about that part of the history. I'm really not really good at a lot of history. But yeah, for sure. There's always that's a big part of industry, especially through the 1700s, 1800s, and you know, even into the 1900s, maybe still today. And Craig says that the dairy farmer has to move to Canada where dairy prices are controlled and consumers pay. I mean, that would be nice. I mean, but you know, here in America, man, we're all about capitalism. And then Eric says, I've only met one middle. You know, in your comments, there's that heart. It always covers. Like on the chat, you can see the heart right here, right? Or is it here? Wherever it is. It always covers part of the comments. I'm always like, what's going on? Oh, I've only met one middle-class Mexican with a desire to move. Yeah, not. You know, I used to date a girl in Mexico City, and she really didn't want to move to the U.S. Like, I could tell, you know, like, you know, she had a nice life. She had her own business. She was an amazing woman. And plus, I was also thinking, would I really want her to come here? Like, do you ask someone to come from a country where they have family and friends and like business and all this to come to America and become a second-class wetback? I didn't have a good answer for that. I was like, I felt selfish. It just felt selfish of me to like, you know, and I know I know what that feels like. I grew up here. I know exactly what that feels like. So I was always uncomfortable suggesting that. Anyway, too much heaviness. So much heaviness for our final episode of 2023. All right, so let's get to the coffee. Like, so how we got diverted to all of this. which brings us back. So this is the Philippine. So I'm at the Philippine Coffee Expo. There's so I'm sitting on that panel. That's what matters. But I was also there for the awarding of the Philippine Coffee Competition. So the best of the Philippines coffee. And what this is, it's very much like the Cup of Excellence, where farmers from around the country submit their coffees, and then a panel of judges selects them. I believe in the Philippines, they had a panel of local judges, cup all the coffees, weed through them a bit, and then an international panel or a more elite panel of judges came to do the final selections and choose the winner. And one of my friends in Singapore, Sean Ong, amazing coffee guy and very good coffee cupping judge. He was one of the lead guys. They're very involved with it. And they came up with this coffee. This is the Finca de Garces Catimor natural process from Bukidnon. And Bukidnon, if you're not too familiar, is a region of the Philippines that's in the southern part of, well, it's on an island called Mindanao, which is at the very southern part of the country. And it's an interesting region because, the Philippines overall is majority Roman Catholic, right? But the South, in the ancient times of the Philippines, it was a lot of Muslims, or mostly Muslim. But then the Spanish came and they were like, okay, we just fought the Moors, so we're not going to allow this either. So they had this battle and they pushed the Muslims down to the south, or that's kind of where their enclave is. And Mindanao is an island where portions of it are Roman Catholic. And so here's the anti-political thing. So portions of it are Roman Catholic and safe, and then the other parts are Muslim and dangerous, right? Because there's a lot of unrest. There's the moral liberation front, because a lot of the Muslims, the people that follow Islam, they want more autonomy in their governing of their regions. Of course, the federal government fights against that. Yeah, I don't know. That's not my battle. I'm all about letting people follow whatever they want. Anyway, Bukidnon's interesting because it kind of straddles that area, right? Because I know this because the Talandig tribe that we work with is also in Bukidnon, but in a different part. So there's the Mount Kalatungan, right? That is kind of in the center part of Bukidnon. The northern part is in an area called Miyarayon, where the Talandig tribe that we worked with is more. Is that right? Yeah, that's right. And then on the southern part of the southern slopes of Mount Kalatungan is, does it say here? Darn it. It begins with a P, and I'm sorry, I can't recall. Panalawan or something like that. But this is where Finca de Garces is located. And this was started by a guy named Manolito Garces. And actually, he only started maybe 2 years ago, I believe. I heard the story of the guy. He's brand new. He's relatively new to coffee farming and production. He must have gotten some good backing because the photos that I've seen of the farm are, well, pretty nice. And so he's able to produce amazing quality coffee. And this is the part where it's like, this is the part in coffee buying that I'm always a little bit, I find difficult, right? The narrative in specialty coffee and third wave coffee is that we're here to help the farmer. We're going to work with these campesino, and you think, oh, they must be campesino farmers struggling to make a living, and we're going to help them. And we're going to find the most amazing coffee because they're producing it. In my experience, okay, this may be very different for a lot of people, for other buyers, but in my experience, the people that are able to produce quality coffee, like high quality coffee, year in and year out, that you can consistently buy from, are not the campesino farmer, because the campesino farmer is a campesino. The person is probably not very well educated, almost certainly is not capitalized, so they don't necessarily have the tools at their disposal for soil analysis, for, fertilizers, or working, to make biodynamic kind of fertilizer, or to have, the resources to produce quality year-round. They may have, there are times when you have these
these smaller farmers that are producing, like, let's say 1 year, amazing coffee. But because that was kind of serendipitous and not necessarily scientific, it becomes very hard for them to produce the next year. So a lot of times you'll see these small farmers win the awards 1 year and not be found at all the next year. And so there's all this hype by all these green buyers. They're like, we want to buy their coffee. And then the next year or 2 years later, nothing. And I think that's a very difficult discussion for especially coffee people, because I don't think anyone really wants to acknowledge that. But the reality is, in my world, it comes down to the fact that the people that we're buying coffee from, they're probably the 1% of their nation. Right? They're educated, probably educated in the United States or in Europe. They're well capitalized. They've got amazing facilities. Like if you go to one of the places that people laud, La Palma y El Tucan in Colombia, you go there, it's like, oh, I mean, I've only seen photos, but it's just like beyond most coffee farms I've ever seen. Or I mean, like it's like resort level. Like you're just going, like, I'm at the Four Seasons of coffee resorts, of coffee farms, right? So, and I think that's the difference. Here we are, we have all these people, and they're like, oh, yeah, we want to help the farmer. But you know what, man? If you're part of the 1% of the country, am I really helping you in that way that my customer base thinks that I'm helping you? I don't know. Anyway, but so Manolito Garces, from what I've seen in the pictures, beautiful farm, beautiful. Like I'm just totally like, wow, that's really nice. And he came out in this like first competition. I think maybe it's a second, but I think it's his first competition, and killed it. #1 coffee in the Philippines for 2023. And this coffee was roasted by the Good Cup Coffee Company in Cebu, Philippines, and it's owned by a guy named Gio Visitacion. And he was kind enough to give this to me at the trade show. Thank you, Gio. I really appreciate that. And so we're going to get into this and see what it tastes like. So here's something. So let's have a look at what the bag says. So as you can see, Good Cup Coffee, Finca de Garces. This is their auction lot. This is the one that won. Natural process Catimor in Bikidnon, Finca de Garces, 1,400 meters above sea level. And this is the crop year is 2023. And what we're supposed to expect is almond, red grapes, orange, and raisin. So that should be quite interesting. All right, so let's get into this. Now, here's something that I always make the mistake of. So these are like these bags that have these pull strips, right? So you pull this strip and then you can reseal it because there's like a Ziploc thing. Well, for some reason, I look at a bag like this and I'll think, how do I open it? There's no, and so I'll bust out the scissors and start cutting, and then I'll realize later that, oh, there was this pull tab that I should have pulled. But we're going to do that now. Oh, come on. Is there some tape? I think there's some tape here. Now, again, this was gifted to me back in June. So it has been sitting here at the roastery. Goodness, what is going on with this thing? What is wrong with me? I'm just tearing the bag apart now. All right, that's not working. We're going to clip this because I think it's just not. There we go. That's going to work. Okay, good. Yeah, that's much more like it. And then, as I said, there's a Ziploc thing here. Ooh, definitely some raisin. What I perceive as chocolate, like dark chocolate. Ooh, that's very lovely. Let's put this into a tray and have a look at what it looks like. See the roast level and all that. So a lighter roast coffee. Nice sized beans. Look at that. Those are pretty big beans. Very uniform. Maybe a couple brokens, but half shells.
But overall, looks very nice. Let us do some measuring here. We're going to do 24 grams. We're going to make our typical brew size, 24 grams. My battery is running out. Kind of fortuitous. Look at that, it's beeping. And now let's get to the grinder. What we're going to do, we're going to grind it. So we're going to follow the, I figured that, this is something that we want to, do a little bit special. I thought we would do that 1-1 style brewing with the cupping style brew. We're going to fully immerse the coffee for 4 minutes and then pour it. Maybe we'll do 3.5 minutes and then pour it into a paper filter. So we're going to do that. And let's get the grinder going. I'm going to do a full course ground on it. I think that in the previous times that we've done this method with a little bit more towards medium, it just took a long time for it to fall later. So I think we'll go for a full course, or maybe not so full course, maybe a little bit off the course. All right, let's have a look here. This is the coffee. Still really nice, fruity. A little more fruitiness is coming out of the coffee that it's ground. Okay, let's put it in our cupping glass. What I think I'm going to do also is when we're done with the steeping, I'll put a little water in here to rinse some of it out. One of the things that I noticed that whenever you try to put coffee in a filter, after you somehow brew it, then you try to pour it through a filter, a lot of the really fine stuff goes in with it so that it clogs the filter and slows down. What I think we're going to do is we're going to stir it when it's time to go, pour it, and then that should give us probably a better distribution of the particulate size so that we don't have as much clogging of the paper filter. Also, I'm going to take the paper filter. We're going to filter through the V60 with a folded Melita filter, right? I'm going to fold this over. And then I'm also going to rinse it just so that the paper filter sticks into the brewer. Yeah, I just want it to stick there and not. Make sure that's nice. Yeah, look at that. There we go. That's what we want. I want to put that aside here. We will not be needing this anymore, I don't think. Oh, well, we'll figure that out. Oh, actually, what we will do maybe, oh, no, that won't work. We're going to do it visually. All right, so now we're going to get the coffee. We're going to heat up the water just a bit more. And Michael says that, yes, I tried that, and it did clog it. I ended up spooning it in, which was surprisingly not bad and pretty quick. Oh, okay, good. Yeah, I think that whenever you do that, it's going to, that's just a natural thing. Like if you do a French press and then you press it and you pour it through the filter to clarify it, yeah, it really gets heavy duty like that. All right, so let's look here. I'm going to transfer just to bring it off the boil. And so like a cupping, we're going to pour it and be relatively forceful so that everything gets fully saturated. Put it right about there. And there it is. We're brewing away. What I need to figure out for our next iteration, like this is really, the setup that we have here is really great for bar service, right? So for when we were operating the Cafe de Spro, it's like you come in, you sit down, and we can take care of you, and there's enough places for 5 seats. So it's very close proximity and very intimate. But because there's a 2-level thing and the camera's higher, we need to figure out a better way so that I would like to have more shots where you can see it, kind of profile of the brewing method, of what's being brewed. That's a little more difficult in this situation. So when we finally get our next space, I'm going to try to figure a better way for that we can get better view. It might have to go to a 3-camera setup instead of just a 2. Right, let's see how we do. 1 minute into the brew. I'm going to wait for 3.5 minutes, and then we're going to take our trusty cupping spoon and cup it. Maybe I should have a little smell of the. Pretty good, pretty good. I'm a little bit stuffy because, man, it's cold. It's so cold. And I like to sleep when it's cold, but like last night it was really maybe a little bit too cold. Oh my goodness. All right, let's see here. How's it going? Almost 2 minutes. So one of you guys was asking yesterday, I think, about the space. So actually what I'm planning to do today is, once we're finished here, I'm going to actually do a tour video of the space so that you can see how it was set up. Kind of, I've been meaning to do like a studio tour for the channel itself, but then I was like, now that the studio's gone, I guess we'll just do a posterity tour. So yeah. Should be interesting. I got received after yesterday's stream. I received a call from a group asking me if I'd be interested to come to Burundi, and I was like, Burundi? That sounds kind of interesting. I've never been to Burundi, and so I was looking online. How was Burundi? And they were like, "Oh, it's kind of all the State Departments all like that. You should reconsider your trip to Burundi because it's dangerous." And I was like, "Oh, come on now! How dangerous could it be?" And then I called a friend of mine who lives up in New York City. She travels a lot around the world, and she works for like an NGO, and she goes to a lot of these like more interesting parts of the world, more interesting places than I go to. And I was like, "How's Burundi?" She's like, "Oh, Burundi." I was like, "How's Bujumbura?" She's like, "Oh, Bujumbura is awesome. You should totally go." I was like, "Well, all right. If they contract me, I will be on the way." Oh my goodness, 3 minutes 35 seconds. I'm babbling away again. The hard part about this is that it is quite hot. Oh no, and I'm making a mess. All right, all right, so we got all of it out, or a majority of it out. That's a good sign. Let's see how long it takes for it to flow through. Flow. A little bit longer than maybe we would have wanted, but here we're getting a lot better flow because we have transferred all of the grounds to. That's pretty much it. All right, dump that out. Give it a nice little rinse. All right, so now this is our elixir. Now we only have very little, and of course, as you know, we ratio this to be 12 ounces. So we're pretty far below 300. So I'm going to have to add a little bit more. I think that'll be good. Right around there should be our mark. And Michael says that, oh yeah, that's pretty quick. I'll use this method you just showed later. Yeah, give it a try. Let me know what you think. I'm interested to know. Even though we won't have a live stream next week, just drop it in the comments later. All right, so let's Ooh, light, kind of like this light fruitiness, sweet, very, very enticing. It's an enticing aroma. And Craig's asking, didn't the one person let all the grinds fall to the bottom of the cup, the cupping cup before polishing with the paper? Yeah, you could. I think he did. And that falling is something that actually happens a lot when you're doing your cupping. Like sometimes you'll have just coffee fall out. Sometimes the entire floating bed will collapse. It just kind of changes depending on, I don't know what it really depends on, but every time's a little bit different. Like if you have the same coffee, let's say you have a 5 cup setting of the same coffee, maybe 1, 2, or 3 of them will fall. So it's really not a. It's really, I think it's really neither here nor there. Now he didn't mix it, but I did want to mix it because I wanted to get a more quicker drop through the filter. And a lot of times when you're like when he did it, then like the last couple of times we did this method, I didn't really stir it, and so a lot of what's floating around is the really tiny minor sediments that are very good at clogging the paper filters, and so it just causes a lot longer of a drawdown. Now, Pete Licata, who designed the W60 for Hario, his W60 brewing is somewhat similar to this, or at least one of the methods he showed, and he was kind of like, well, once it's passed through that point, it really is not brewing anymore. So the concern is always that, the longer it takes, the more potential for over extraction. I don't know. We're really just kind of riffing, right? We're riffing on all of this. All right, let's see. There is a fruitiness, a very pleasant, enticing fruitiness. I don't really know what fruitiness. Maybe like a raisin, like a light raisin. So it's a very thin coffee, very light, floral, delicate, but thin. The body's really thin. Like there's no real body to it. It's a very light bodied coffee. I'm wondering if this type of brewing is really designed to highlight those lighter, brighter notes. We're gonna wait till it cools because it's still warm or hot, and so let's cool it down. And I just sense on that last sip that maybe something is developing more, right? A little more development. Like right now, what the mouth is like. Imagine without the astringency, without the burn, kind of like what a scotch, like a regular scotch, that kind of mouthfeel. That's probably the best way that I can describe that. Juicy, definitely some fruitiness. It's very delicate, right? It's not like some coffees are kind of like fanfare. They kind of come out with stronger notes and kind of like, hey, this is much more delicate. It's much more subtle. It's a very subtle coffee in that respect. The finish is fleeting, and it kind of has this citrusy note, maybe like I wanted to say calamansi, which is the kind of like Philippine lime, but really it's more like a very light dalandan. And dalandan is a citrus fruit in the Philippines that is actually kind of like an orange, like a little bit tardier orange. And I only get it there because whenever I'm at the farmers markets there, they have these vendors that are selling dalandan juice, and it's super cool. Oh man, it's so delicious. Like I get that, and I get fresh jackfruit, good. Definitely that kind of dull and done orange, light orange on the finish. Body's very thin body. What are we supposed to be getting? They say we're supposed to be getting almond, red grapes, orange, raisin. Oh, orange. Yeah, there it is. Almond, maybe at the very outset when it was still hotter, there might have been a tint of bitterness, that could be, I guess, almondy. I guess you could say red grapes. Like it says red grapes here. I guess that would be, yeah, maybe that's a good description for it. Of course, I'm saying that now. I don't know if necessarily I'm actually perceiving it that way, or if I'm just being perceiving that way because I've been instructed to. And definitely, we said there was some raisiness to it. So really, really nice. I don't know if I would. I would have to put this in a cupping setting, like an actual cupping, and taste it that way. Like it's a very good coffee, I think. But it's also one of these coffees that's very light, very delicate, subtle. I guess if you're really a geisha kind of person, like if you have the geisha, and if you taste the geisha, and you got this tea-like character, you're like, oh my God, this is, and brightness, and you're like, oh my God, this is the best kind of coffee in the world. You will love this. I think you would love the characters of this. But if you're like me and you're a little bit more into like a little more robust coffees, a little bit more, chocolatey notes and like balanced with some fruit and nuts, kind of blended in that way, you'll enjoy it. But I don't know if I would, like, if I had to choose the best of the country, I don't know if this would have been it. Only because it's just not my favorite profile on a personal level. Now, if we were sitting in the cupping environment, I would like to, it does make me wonder what it's like in a cupping environment. So if I put it in our cupping environment and did it as a cupping, would the result be much different? But it is very good. What would I eat with this? Like this would not be well suited for concha, not well suited for Sancerval. What might go well is something with cream and maybe strawberries, like a shortcake, maybe. I was going to say maybe like a tres leches, but I don't know. Maybe that's too heavy for this. This requires something a little more delicate, a little bit lighter. Maybe like a fruit tart. Michael's right. I think I'll go with Michael. A flan, a fruit tart. Flan could work. Flan could work. And then Michael says that he also tasted some bench maji. Bench maji? What is bench maji? I don't know. I'm not familiar with bench maji. A few years ago, that had notes of jackfruit, tropical and delicious. Oh, that sounds very nice. One of the things that I'm always kind of like, that I find difficult, like when I'm talking with baristas, right, who are interested in competing, because part of the big part of the competition thing is to accurately describe to your judges what they're going to experience, right? The more you can do that, and the more and hopefully that is very much what they experience, your scores can be much higher and you have a greater chance of winning. The thing is that, especially when you get to the higher levels of competition, like at the world levels, when you have judges from all over the world, part of the difficulty is like if you say to someone that's an American judge or a Western judge, and you start talking about things like it tastes like dalandan, or it tastes like calamansi, or lychee, or any of those kind of fruits, they may not have any idea what you're talking about, right? Like yesterday we were talking about like the South Korean pears, the Asian pear. Like most people know what pear is, but South Korean pears are have a noticeable subtle difference. And conversely, if you're talking to judges from other parts of the world, maybe let's say I don't know, Africa or Asia, and you start talking about certain things. Like here in Maryland, there's a fruit that comes out every October called the pawpaw, and it's kind of got this custardy kind of character to it. It's really kind of nice, kind of like maybe like a mangosteen. Oh, is that right? I don't know. I can't think of what mangosteen really is like. Anyway, but if you say to someone, from Asia, and you're like, oh yeah, it's like it has a pawpaw kind of flavor, and you're like, what the hell is that? I have no idea what that is, right? And there's a lot of fruit that I've had a lot of experience tasting a lot of different things. That I don't know what that tastes like, right? let's say there is something like the dragon fruit, for example. I think that's a good example because you can get dragon fruit here in America. It's about $7 for one fruit, expensive. But a lot of the dragon fruit that you get here in America, it's they have to ship it from across the world, so it's going to be harvested early. So here it's kind of tardy and like not so enjoyable to eat. But you go to Asia, man, and it's like the dragon fruit's like fresh and it's like super ripe, and you're just like, oh my gosh, man, this. I'm just like I'm at the hotel bar and just kind of like, give me more of that. So that's always an issue, I think, when you're competing. Is you kind of have to figure out who your judges are, who your audience is, so that you can talk to them. Because if I tell people like here, like if I had people guessing the thing, and I say it's going to taste like the London, what does that mean? It means nothing. It means absolutely nothing. It means everything to me. But I have to find a way to like communicate that. And I think what they did here with the Good Cup Coffee is by saying it's orange. Orange is very readily understandable by plenty of people around the world. So. And Eric says it did look a little. It is definitely the lighter side. Like the whole thing about the newer generation of especially third wave coffee people is that it has trended towards light roasting, brighter notes. They want more delicate. They want more floral. They want more tea-like. And this really does fill that bill. It's very, very, in that respect, it's very, very good. But will you enjoy it? It just depends on what kind of coffees you prefer for your personal tasting. Like, for example, like in my role, if I have to cup coffees for an event or taste coffees or whatever, I have to look at it from a spectrum of objectivity, right? Whereas, if I'm just drinking coffee and like you guys at home, you don't have to look at it with objectivity. You can look at it with great amounts of subjectivity. Like, I like this, I hate that, right? Whereas, like, if I'm out evaluating coffees, it's partially what I like and part of what I don't like, as far as perhaps what I'll buy. But I have to be able to assess the coffee and figure out where it is on the spectrum of quality, right? And then decide whether or not that fits into whatever program we're working for. So I could buy when I started buying, like if I bought strictly coffees that I loved and only coffees that I loved, I would have probably ended up with a whole menu of like natural processed coffees. You're like, oh, it's all natural, it's all blueberry. I love it, right? I love it. I love that. Robust blueberryness and complexity. I love that kind of thing. A little bit roasty, not roasty, but a little bit, nice development, sweetness, But that would make for a very monotonous experience. But depending on what we're doing, we want to find coffees that will meet the needs of different people. Like some people like that, love this kind of bright light coffees. So we'll look for some of those. We also need to look at what kind of blends are we working on? What kind of blends do our clients request? What coffees will make those components for those blends? So that's all part of it. So you have to kind of be you have to be able to be objective while also being subjective, I think. And that's something that, like the Specialty Coffee Association is working on this new coffee assessment program that they've been rolling out this year. And they've taken the cupping form. If you're familiar with it, if you look up coffee cupping form, there's this one page, it's one little chart that has 10 different characteristics. And they've taken that and they've kind of like convoluted and they broke it up into 3 different pages and 3 different forms. And it's like, and now it's a hedonistic scale of I like it, I don't like it. How much do I like it? How much do I don't like it? And it's like, and I think that's a response to, a lot of the newer generation that is like, oh, and people, they say that, I have a whole video about this, that that Kim Ionescu and Jen explain a bit more. But I think the genesis is where people are like, oh, we want to try to make it. Everyone's trying to be objective. We want it to be more subjective because people are buying based on their subjectivity. And I'm like, well, yeah, sure, there's part of that. Like, but I think that we have to be able to agree as coffee buyers in a professional industry that we can say that this coffee is qualitatively like 87, right? We can say this coffee qualitatively is 87 or whatever it may be. Now, on a personal level, I may love it, or a personal level, I may hate it, and I would never drink it for myself, but I can qualitatively say that we can agree that it's 87 with these characteristics, and then you can decide whether it fits into your buying program. Or I'm not sure this new one does it. Like it makes it much more convoluted. Then when you do all the scoring, you have to plug it into this online website that will recalculate those numbers and create a 100-point cup score. And it's like, why in the world are we? What? And I asked them, and I think they chafed on it in the video. But I kind of asked them, what problem is this solving? Because I don't know if there is a problem. Like, I think part of being the professional, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe some of you guys think, no, this is really the right way to go. And I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this. But like, I think part of being a professional is learning the standards and being able to apply that. Well, I don't know. Yeah, and scores determine price, but I think they want to change that so that. But for me, it's like scores determine price for sure throughout the industry. And for me personally, the scores determine price to a certain extent. But really, it's about how is that coffee. Now, of course, you can't. Let's say you have a beautiful coffee that you'd love to buy for $2.50, and it's scoring 89. Well, you're not going to be able to buy that for $2.50 unless you're totally hoodwinking someone. But anyway, so this is actually, it's kind of nice. It's a little bit sweet. We've got our dull and done on the finish. It's actually, as it's cooled down a lot, that dull and done or orange character has become a little bit more rounded, a little more robust, a little bit sweeter. And I just added more of it, so it raised the temperature. I was actually enjoying that last sip a lot better. Ooh, maybe this would be amazing as a cold brew. Or maybe not even cold brew, but maybe just allowed to chill. Like for a summer afternoon, light, refreshing kind of drinking. Yeah, that could be really it. Maybe light, refreshing, and then you could like in a tall glass with ice and a slice of orange for fruity summer drinking. And best of the Philippine coffee, so it's $15. I'm liking it more. I'm liking it more as it cools. I'm going to let this sit and cool down a moment. Let me just take care of one housekeeping thing. I'm just going to set up. I got another camera rolling, and just wanted to get that together. All right, so any more thoughts? We've actually gone a long time. This is one of the longest episodes we've done because I've babbled so much. My apologies for all the babbling. But like I said, if you're just joining us, it's your first time watching the live stream, we are going to be on hiatus for at least a month until next year because we're moving out of this space, going somewhere new. I don't know where yet. I'm still working on that. I'm sending a proposal to a guy today to hopefully get this one space that I kind of really like, which is actually a bad thing because I'm kind of in love with it. So it's like I think it's compromising my view. Right? That's the concern. But I have some other people to talk to about other locations. I've looked at quite a number of locations already. Eric says, thanks, man. Hope your move goes well. Thank you. I appreciate that. And appreciate your blog immensely. See you in 2024. Yeah, very good. Very good. We'll see you in 2024. And yeah, there it is. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate you being here. Sorry, we're not going to be able to continue for a little while, but we'll be back after the year. I hope you're going to have a great holiday. If you're, whatever you're celebrating, Christmas, Hanukkah, whatever it is, Kwanzaa, I hope you have a great one. And back again as soon as possible. Keep you updated in the community posts, and we'll still have regular release videos. Also, on the Spro Coffee channel, I published a podcast that I recorded back in 2018. I totally forgot about, totally lost it, found it on a laptop. It's called the Radio Free Spro, and I'm talking with my friends Joan Obra and her husband, Ralph Gaston, about some of the coffees that they've produced for us at Rusty's Hawaiian Coffee. It's they cover the sea salt massage coffee, which they're using sea salt to massage natural coffee during the drying process, and then the hydro honey, which I just listened to the podcast the other day as I was putting it together for the video, and I still am confused. I have to go listen to it again myself. And then there are also, back then, the yeast, the induced yeast or introduced yeast fermentations were just getting off the ground, and Miguel Meza was just starting out. So there's a little bit of discussion about that. So Eduardo, muchas gracias as well, también. And then Mom, you two have a great weekend. Wilson, thank you very much. Baldhead, for sure, Thursday. And if that's another thing, we're planning to do on Thursday evenings, 8 p.m. on the Ono Live channel. We do coffee and cigars, where we do a little bit of coffee and smoke cigars for a couple hours. So if you have time to come hang out, come join us. 8 p.m. Eastern on Thursdays on the Ono Live channel. And Michael, looking forward to seeing you. Looking forward to see you then. And be in touch. And I'll send you some of the ideas, Michael, that I have as they develop. All right, so hope you have a great one. And see you again soon. All right, there it is.